100. And the next class will be, I hope, one that you remember something about. It is titled Suicide Prevention. And I am Lieutenant Colonel John Zillhart, your friendly neighborhood John, for those of you in law enforcement. You may get it. Anyone want to guess as to what this is? I'm glad you're in this training today. We will cover how to interpret the drawings of senior officers that may be strange. But on a serious note, what we are going to talk about today is rather serious. It is about suicide and particularly how we can prevent it as leaders. So in front of you, you have a couple of items. I would like you all to ensure that you have positive control over a white 3x5 card and something to write with. We're going to start off here with a little activity I like to call 3 truths and a lie. I made that up. Not really, I procured it. But we're all going to play 3 truths and a lie. And for those of you who don't want to play, you'll come sit over here at this table. Before we begin the activity, now that you have positive control of your card and your pen, we're going to count off by 3s, okay? So 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Okay? Now, the group of 3 that I just denoted, you're a table family, okay? So you're going to be playing this with each other. So what I want you to do on the front side of the card, that's a joke because it's white on both sides. Anyway, I want you to write down 1, 2, 3, and 4, okay? And I want you with your table family to write your names in no particular order. So find out your table family's names and just put them down on the card, 1, 2, 3 for me. Not your own, not your own. Your table family's names. If anyone's confused by that, everybody who's in a group of 3 is a table family, and you need to know the 3 other names of the family. So basically you'll have yourself and the 2 people, and then I will round out your list.
3.
No, you don't need to move. You can just find out each other's names.
You were a 3, I think.
Yeah, I was.
So that's like 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3.
When you got now like 2 groups of families, 3, 3, 3 of you. You're supposed to do it that family, right?
1, 2, and 3. 2, 3 are table.
Push me around.
Yeah, why don't we have
So we'll do now like
All right, so to recap, everybody should have a card, and you should have 1 through 4 on one side of the card, and there should be 3 names, none of them that are your name, because the 3rd name is my name, which is right up here. Okay? So the 4th will be blank. That is intentional. All right, are we all there? No. Raise your hand if you're not there. The 3 that when I pointed at you and gave you a number, what number are you? 3? So then who is 2? Right here? Okay, so the 3 of you, you'll each put each other's names in a list. So you, for example, put his name, and then my name, and leave the 4th name. And like, Who else would like some assistance in the list? Anyone? All right. Well, then we will proceed. That went very smoothly. So, 3 truths and a lie. Who knows how to play this activity? Okay, so the idea is you're going to write down on the opposite side of the card about yourself now, not your table family. Yourself, you're going to think hard and you're going to write down 3 truths and 1 lie about yourself. Go.
You need a lie or a truth.
Okay, so at this point you should have on your card, on one side, 1, 2, 3, 4, with your table family, name not yours, my name, plus on the other side, 1, 2, 3, 4, 3 truths and a lie. Now I will proceed to share my 3 truths and a lie with all of you, because I'm the third name on your card. So, my first, love my family.
True.
Second, hey,
Hate it.
no giveaways in the crowd. Do not like pets. Number 3, I get angered easily by motorists. And number 4, love Game of Thrones. A little bit about me, okay? So, what we're going to do now is you are going to, among your table family, figure out and place next to the names on the side of the card that bears the names, which one you think is the lie. Go. Write it down. Which one? You will have to share with each other, of course, your 3 truths and a lie, just as I did, and then you will write down what you think the lie is.
I ain't kidding, you wrote it down.
Just write Here's mine.
Oh, I didn't realize that too. There we go.
Can't do it together. I can't play with this.
I don't know if you can. I can decipher what you get. Winemaker. Vikings man. Family man. I'm fantastic.
One minute left.
We had to write a rebel for it.
8 seconds.
I always got and if I gotta do some sort of essay, I send my wife. Oh yeah, so if you do one basic one, then even that's a big all, you know, what is changing
It's all in the lower grade and
All right, it sounds like everyone's pretty much wrapped up. So at this point on your card, you should have what you think the lies are from your table family plus me. Okay? So we'll start with myself. We're going to go through and find out what is true and what is a lie. Number 1, love my family. True or lie?
Lie.
True.
That's a true. Number 2, do not like pets.
False.
Interesting. That is also true. Number 3, my love does not extend beyond people. Get angered easily by motorists.
True.
That is true. Minnesotans in particular. Man! So, by process of elimination, love Game of Thrones. I know it's shocking to some. I actually don't even watch television. I have no idea what that show's about. I thought it was about science fiction and rockets, but I could be wrong. Okay, so go around the tables. What's the lie? Find out. How you did.
That was right. Okay, Robinson. True.
Alright. The truth is the first 3. The lies, I'm fantastic. I'm amazing.
I'm right again. I'm 2 for 2. Okay. I got shot. Nope, twice. I got shot once in the head with a feather. Feather. My brother took a feather, put in a BB gun and shot me. Actually, he used to get BB gun shot. Yeah, that's why I have like and then I got shot in the chest by a primer because my dad used to prime shotgun shells. And the primer shot out of the fire into my chest.
I know I'm ready.
I have 4 brothers. I'm the 5th. I love pizza.
What got yours right? I got
Well, one is, I guess,
4. I love kids.
All right, we'll give it another minute.
that's one of them. My doctor's
Right. I said you didn't like celery. I usually got shot too when I
All right, that
sounds
sounds like some people learned some things from that little activity about each other, maybe about yourself. Who was surprised by something in that activity? Didn't see it, didn't make the connection? I see some hands, okay, you're the honest ones, appreciate that. So I will just state administratively before I move on, if you have any questions about anything I covered today, please feel free to raise them at any time, and we will place them here in the parking lot. Okay? The reason we did that activity was to bring to the forefront of our minds the fact that things are not always what they seem. Perception is in the eye of the beholder. We do have unconscious biases. We make judgments about people, and those judgments change over time, but even with knowledge over time about someone, you don't necessarily know them. You don't necessarily understand what's going on inside them unless you make a conscious effort. A conscious effort. So when you walk past someone in the hallway and say, hey, how's it going? And they say, oh, I'm fine. Do you really understand? Was that really a conscious effort? No. The answer is no, it wasn't. That was just a pleasantry that we do because of how we're raised and what our culture says about giving a greeting of the day. It's also embedded in our military values, right? You give a greeting of the day as you pass someone. That's a respectful thing to do. But that's not how you know how someone's doing. And what suicide prevention is all about, especially with this audience, leaders, all of you, is seeking to understand those you're interacting with so that you can know if something is amiss, if something is out of place. If you learn some new information that makes you check yourself and say, is this all that it appears to be, or is there something deeper? Do I need to ask a question? Do I need to take some time? Because time, of course, we all know is in such short supply during these IET periods. So, we're here to talk about suicide prevention, and in particular, ACE. Pretty straightforward, right? What does it stand for? Ask, Care, Escort. I love it when it's right up there on the screen. Also, please appreciate how colorful and busy this slide is, much like our drill weekends. So, I do like this analogy, and make no mistake, it's an analogy. Be aware of what's in your rucksack, right? Or is that a metaphor? Someone might want to look that up on Google. Anyway, we all have a rucksack, right? In fact, our job for a lot of us is to tell other soldiers to put stuff in a rucksack, put it on their back, and go walk with it for a while. Now, some of us actually might take some kind of perverse enjoyment out of that, and I'll be the first to say I do, but it wasn't always that way, and it might not have always been that way for you, and it certainly may not be that way for your soldiers. At any rate, the point is that we have our physical rucksack, we have our metaphorical rucksack, and there's a lot going on in our lives. There's a lot going on in our soldiers' lives. We need to remember to take the time to ask, how are you doing? And then when we hear something that sounds a little off, out of place, not what we were expecting, we have to check ourselves, and before we rush off to that next thing, we have to either say, hey, I need to come back to this, or right there we say, hey, you got a minute to talk? Because I want to understand a little bit better what you just said. That is our duty. That is our duty as leaders to do that. So anything here looks strange or foreign to anyone in this room, I would expect not. These are all things going on in our lives, right? Aspects, variables, items. It is a nice way to categorize, though, the risk factors, the protective factors. Now think back to the 3 truths and a lie, right? Because all of us have an image of ourselves. We have an image of who we think we are deep down inside, and we have an image that we project to others, what we want others to think of us when we think about things like reputation. When we play or execute, we don't play in the Army, an activity like 3 truths and a lie, that is a reflection of how we project our image and also what we think of ourselves. And with different people, that spectrum is varied on how much divergence, how much difference there is between what people want to project to others and what people believe in themselves. Now, who can tell me this? The further you get apart on that spectrum, the more danger, the more risk, or the less? Between the image of yourself, what you believe in yourself here, and what you want other people to think of you over here. They're out like this. Is that risky or is that protective? That's risk, right. So here's my point to all of you leaders in this room. Think about that. Because before you can effectively help a soldier who may be in distress, you need to understand yourself, and you need to understand where you are on that spectrum. Because really the goal, I will say, for self-awareness, discounting paranoia, which some would argue is total awareness, but self-awareness is that you bring that spectrum as close together as possible. Your image of yourself is the image that you intend to project to others. And here's the critical thinking part. I want you, within your tables now, not your table family from the 3 Truths and a Lie, but within your entire table, I want you to discuss a little bit, why is it so important to have that awareness about oneself? What is the danger about having a vastly different image you try to project and what you actually believe about yourself? Go.
Really here. Projecting that. Same person.
Somebody's going to ask you your accomplishment task, you want to be seal it or your capability of handling it. Because you can work
Yeah, exactly.
How you perceive yourself and how you want others to perceive
others subjective. That's why just
how you think of yourself.
right, you got to keep track of that shit. You got to try to pretend like you're good at it.
You know, if you think poorly of yourself,
Makes it going to do other stuff. Getting away from risk and like getting a little break, which is kind of something that's so everything trying to fake it. I know. I used to not like to come in for work, you know what I mean?
It's gonna grow a cocoon.
I don't think they did that.
Time is coming back.
I believe it's years that it came back. However, it came back in the terrible thing where now they're putting decorative things in there.
Messed up and the whole narrative. That's like
Grand butter. Oh yeah.
Until 6 months ago.
So your brother is terrible.
But he doesn't trim it. His wife made him trim it before the wedding. It's the only way he can help him here is naturally.
All right, I'm hearing a lot of good conversation.
I haven't seen it without
So what I'd like to hear from this table over here, what was one of the things you were discussing?
Well, I was thinking that if you're not here and you're out here,
let's listen in over here to the table.
You're gonna end up with almost a double personality, and then you don't know how to act when you're with certain people because you're not like this. You're not being true to yourself, so to speak.
Not being true to yourself, a double personality. Great. How about something else? This table over here.
Well, on the flip side, as a leader or somebody that cares about this individual, it's very difficult to identify any of the risk factors and everything that are representing themselves as is like live. You know, we have this facade out in front here, and it's going to be difficult to identify these things that are going on.
Great point. The truth is hard to see when there's a facade. How about this table here?
Credibility, so that you don't have a full understanding of what's going on. You may say something really outrageous, everybody will see it, but you're not credible.
Well, that's an interesting point. Credibility. I really like that you brought that one up. So how about this table here?
How exhausting it is to kind of maintain a fake persona.
Yeah, absolutely. Split persona, split personality. I heard facade, credibility, a lot of work.
Yep.
How about this table in the back? Oh, I heard conversation back there. Someone's going to speak up. Who had a good idea? Call out your neighbor.
So, over time, it can become overwhelming and tiresome on the person because they're having to maintain those, split personalities and everything else where it could be more prone or they can become more lean towards other avenues, whether it's drug, alcohol, or ultimately as far as suicide.
That's a great point. In the very act, you are creating a risk factor for yourself, stressing yourself out, causing yourself the concern about what's going on with my own actions. And did I get this table yet?
They all have.
I don't believe that. There has to be something that wasn't covered.
Well, sir, if you're living two lives and you have multiple persona going on there, you're not even going to be aware, you're not self-aware to know when you've reached crisis. So you're not going to know when you've reached too much and even go to ask for help because you're just not aware of when you've reached that.
Great point. If everyone heard that one. So your own actions cloud your ability to be aware of when you yourself are at risk and need help. So how indeed can you ask for help if you don't know that you need help? Can't recognize it. Excellent. So all of these, I'd say, are right on target. This is exactly the point. As a leader, if we are indeed duty-bound to do the things on this card, to ask your buddy, to care, and to escort, how can we do any of those things if we ourselves are part of the problem? And not being aware of who we are, putting all the effort into trying to project an image of something that doesn't reflect reality is exhausting, and ultimately it will catch up with us. Now, I heard it, but I want to call it out again. What is a vice or a hobby for some that is one of the easiest avenues to lose self-awareness and end up with this dichotomy, this spectrum?
Alcoholism or substance abuse?
Exactly. That is the danger, right? So we connect it back to that ASAP training we've received. That's where you have to check yourself as a leader. Do I know when to say enough's enough? And it's not just about the consequences to yourself and your career, that image on the spectrum, but truly, how can you lead? How can you help anyone else when you have baggage like that in your rucksack? You're unbalanced. It's going to catch up with you. So I want you to think too, trainings like this, these short moments, are a time for reflection, as well as the discussion we've been going through, because we do always need to assess ourselves. Are we on track? Last night we had a great event. I really enjoyed myself. I don't know if any of you noticed, but it was fun. You know, that's what a unit event should be. That's what a family unit event should be. I am certain that most of us in this room with your rank and experience have had an experience with an event that was not as fun and or good as what happened last night. The key is, what is it that we do as leaders to ensure that the activities that we participate in, that we are responsible for, that make up our lives, are like what happened last night and not something else. And of course, again, I only know what I know, but I can share this with you, that once my daughter ultimately was lulled to sleep by Sergeant Stewart's fantastic singing, which I was really impressed by, I departed and I walked across the street. And I walked across the street because that's the room that I rented last night. That was an intentional act as a leader. That's my expectation of myself. That's my expectation of those soldiers I serve with, is to act that way and not get in a car and go drive away. I had 2 beers last night. I don't have any shame in saying it. But that's enough for me. I didn't need any more. I really would have liked a third, to be fair, but I didn't drink it. And again, that's self-awareness. That's knowing who we are, being comfortable with who we are. So, what all that leads back to, right, is our awesome slide about ask. Because, again, all that stuff, all of your baggage needs to be in balance before you can ask another soldier, no matter their rank, hey, are you okay? So this should look familiar to everybody, right? Some things you can say. The thing I challenge you though, is it that easy? Is it that easy? Amongst your table, I want you to talk about a time where you had a eureka moment, where you were walking past a soldier and you said, hey, how you doing? And that soldier said, oh, I'm alive. And you went, whoop. Let me pause and say, what do you mean by that, soldier? What do you mean you're just alive today? I would expect that you're better than alive. We're in the Army and we're doing awesome stuff. What's going on? Tell me about it. All right, talk at your tables.
You're amazing.
Because we knew it happened. No one else has got any good.
Because I need to and you would help talk to him. I was like, watch it right now. Maybe I won't be here later.
And I was dealing with a kid who was studying cancer. And this guy came up and he's been around and he was just like, I can't do this. I've got to get specialized dying cancer over here. If I had to work with this, but instead I was like, I guess that's the conversation to have. Comparing 2 different soldiers' problems the wrong way. I was like, I need to have you complete the chaplain because I don't know what happens. It's like I was at my own level there. I can't handle 25-year-old.
But hard, especially when it's over the phone.
I think hard.
Like you're scared of being the wrong thing, you're scared of being
Because of my own understanding,
you want to make
I was
sure
turning over professional.
try to keep them on the phone, but they're trying to work for somebody else. Make them
When he, from the moment he joined, called up, was drill, he didn't show up. Well, no, actually, that's not true. He came to drill. We told him we were going to do a pool. We all let the promoter go. It's like, I was talking to him, saying stupid. driving out. All the sheriff's departments, as he was driving out. 238, that goes up to the, you see it on there? Yeah. The sheriff is taking a 72-hour watch. What's that? You got a real short after that. So he said you can't make me come, I'm not coming, and I have a doctor's note for somebody.
I've had people arrest their slaves.
All right. I'd like one table, one person to volunteer their buddy who had a great story about how to ask. Are you okay? Who is willing to volunteer their buddy for this important and respectful expression? Sorry, I can do it. You will go. All right, you volunteer yourself.
I had a soldier that failed a DAT, failed the urinalysis, and come to find out, and during the process, we were processing them out, and then once we finally sat down with them, come to find out, there was a lot of, your first instinct is, they failed a DAT, kick them out, they're a dirt bag. But, and it was unfortunate because the process was already implemented, so they were getting booted out, but then finally having the opportunity to sit down with them, and, there was issues, there was depression, there was a lot of mental problems. So, we can jump to conclusions, but that's not always done. The substance was just coding some underlying issues. So that was one thing I learned.
Thank you, Master Sergeant. Someone else. I will call on the volunteer to volunteer.
So, in lieu of not naming names, long story short, we found out that the life outside of drill was an underlying issue, that it took a certain event for us to realize that was our aha moment, to where we realized that we had to dig deeper and address those issues.
Great point. So citizen versus soldier balance. So if I heard you right, as a soldier, great. The issue wasn't as a soldier. But something happened and you said, oh, this is not what I understand this person to be like. What's going on here? And you realized through that process, through asking, that it was about the other 28 days of the month. Could that happen? Does that happen? Every unit in this Minnesota Army National Guard? Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you, Sergeant. One more.
I'm notorious for getting to know people, and I usually will just say, you seem to look around today, is everything all right? And I did that in high school with a girl that I didn't really know, and she revealed some things that weren't going so well in my life. Most recently, one of my coworkers, same thing, put on my dog, is really sick, and then she's wrong on how to see the dog. No, I'm just kidding.
Excellent foreshadowing. We're coming to that part of the class.
No, but that was always the hard part for me, is once you open the door, like, I always felt like I was inadequate, and I think that's why a lot of people don't want to go over it, because they're afraid they don't know what to say.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Lane. That's a perfect segue. So I will hazard that for those in this room, it's a little easier to ask. It should be, right? Because we have authority that comes with our rank, with our position. It's our job to ask questions. It's what we do. So for a junior enlisted soldier, it may be a much harder thing to ask. So I'm not going to focus any more time on it other than to say I think that all of these are very valid points. And they do reflect well on our judgment as leaders. What is the intent? A young leader may say, this is the task, you failed the task, I don't care why, I don't care what the backstory is, I'm done with you, you're dead to me. Who's ever heard that phrase, you are dead to me? I would expect Combat Arms, the whole 2nd Battalion up, but I have heard that phrase uttered by senior leaders in the active Army. And frankly, that does not lead to a productive work environment, does it? That's not going to get you the ask. So mitigating circumstances, knowing that story, what's going on the rest of the month, having that contact, we hear it, right, all the time. Leaders need to be in contact with their soldiers every week. Fill out a little chart. Did you call your soldier every week? Did you send him an email every week, right? Is that really what it's about? No. Because that's really, in a way, not any better than you're dead to me if you fail me, right? It's doing things by rote, checking the box. And again, we'll come to that with care. But we all need to be cognizant of the fact that for a lot of soldiers in this organization, 28 days out of that month, different life, different life. Where does it tie back to? How does this happen, right? It's not always intentional. I would argue that it's rarely intentional that a person wants to be like this with what they see themselves and what they want others to see. But when you are a soldier for 2 days out of the month, and the rest of the time, there are other 28 days, you're something completely different. If you are something completely different, this happens. And then it's harder for us to be able to know what's really going on. And so the key point, the key takeaway is you gotta ask. You gotta ask. If there's any doubt, you've gotta ask, because it's too risky if you don't. So that brings me though to transition, right? So you ask, and now you get 3 bags full of drama. So that gets us to our next slide here. How do we care? How do we care? Who's heard the phrase that the Army is a people organization? No? The Army is the people organization. What other organization in the world has a mission where I may have to say, I need you to go attack that position, and you're probably going to die? No other job. That's why soldiering is special, because of that. So you may then be saying, well, does that mean we get the kind of leaders who are the ones who are uncaring or willing to say that? I argue, and I think all of you probably have an experience to back this up, that the best leaders in the Army are the same best people that we've ever interacted with, and they're the ones who care. They really care. They may still, in fact, they're the ones who will make that tough call. But you will answer that call just as I will, because we know that they care, and they would not tell us to do it. They would not ask us to go into the breach if it wasn't necessary. So now I'd like you at your tables to talk a little bit about a leader, just one leader. Doesn't have to name, you don't have to name a name, doesn't have to be military or something, but a person, a leader in your life who really cares, who you felt that care, you've seen it. Go.
Colonel Zohar.
Is that a question? You're too kind. I don't have any treats, I'm sorry. Actually, that's not true. I've got a lunch in the back, and you can share with me. Excellent answer.
My current state.
Yeah, 6 years. E5 to, yes, I was there for
You were an E5 and you pick up, you didn't have 6?
no, this is the regular 6.
Oh, I know it's better than very.
I had one that was good. 2011, so I was going through a really personal issue. And
That's what I was trying to think too, there's a lot of that. Probably want to get
Supply sergeant, sergeant reading. He would do anything. He just hit me in the lieutenant top. Sergeant reading.
I was like,
Sergeant reading. Mark reading. He's at the HRC now. Yes, sir. If I was having a tough time or anything, he'd call me every week. Financial problems. Bring me dinner.
All right. Someone who hasn't yet volunteered or been volunteered, I'd like to hear a story about someone who cares. Who's got a short story for me? Nominate your buddy. All the conversations at these tables, I'm sure someone heard something that's pretty cool. That would be better for the larger audience.
So back in 2002 to 2004 or 5, we had a command sergeant major, Regetz, the command sergeant major 2125. He was probably one of the only, in my career, the only command sergeant major I've ever known that is just your people's people, your soldier. He'd come around, he'd always talk to you. It wasn't like a rank kind of philosophy of things, but he was always out at training, asking how soldiers were doing, checking things out, going through the training with the soldiers, and very, very approachable guy. And I think, when you go back to, how you want to be as an individual, it's a lot of things I've taken from that aspect. But that's one that kind of comes up in my mind.
Sounds like he was very aware of his soldiers. Knew him.
Yep.
Thank you. Another one? Sergeant?
I've got one, sir. During one of our MSLIC teaches, we had a soldier that was, I'm not going to say substandard, but the test, no, negative. Anyway, so his test scores and stuff were showing that he was barely making it. And after, this is a complete stranger to one of the instructors, and the instructor noticed that, hey, something's going on here, and dug a little deeper and basically got out of the student that there was some family issues at home that I think it was a terminal illness. But he provided that mentorship to a complete stranger, to one of his peers, instructor peers, but to a complete stranger, and helped him get through it, talked to him, provided him resources. And the end result is this guy actually ended up graduating MSLIC, which, for an instructor to just a complete stranger blew my mind.
Saw me and acted. Very impressive. Thank you, Sergeant. I will say, as I walked around, and you'll recall I said you don't need to name names, but see, we're attributive in the Army, right? That's what we do. We judge. That's what we do. We take experiences, we log them away, and then we call them forth when we need to make decisions, sometimes in crisis. So I heard a lot of names, and that doesn't surprise me. I think it's important to know, just as you know yourself, know what you believe good leadership to be. Now, admittedly, the goal, I believe, in the Army is that your idea of good leadership is my idea of good leadership, but we're also both humans, and so different people do have different views on what good leadership is. What my point is, know yourself what you think good leadership is. You have to be able to objectify it. You have to be able to describe it. You can't just say, this is a risk here, but I'm going to do it. You can't just say, I don't know what I want, but this isn't it, and walk out the room. No, No, it's not good enough. That's a cheat. Don't do that. Don't accept that. Know what good leadership is. Good leadership cares. That's a fact. I'll challenge anybody on that fact. All right, so I know what you're thinking. 10 minutes left. We still got E to go through, but see, in this audience, I don't worry about E, because you can just tell me E, right? Because that's what we are. We're leaders. We know what E is. So what I'd like, this table right here, what's one way that we escort? Where do we escort? Right here, Camp Ripley. Need to escort. What are we going to do? I heard chain of command. I heard chaplain. All right, how about this table over here?
TMC.
TMC, great. This table right here.
Straight to the VA.
Straight to the VA where?
St. Cloud.
St. Cloud. How about that table back there? Family assistance, excellent. Where's family assistance here on this post? Up at the TAC, that's right. Over here?
ER at St. Gabe's.
St. Gabe's ER, fantastic. And this table here? I heard one that's good enough. I heard Sergeant Geisy. The point is, don't leave them alone, right? If you've identified a soldier and you've asked them, and you're demonstrating care because you're hearing something that clearly there's some distress, you don't leave them alone. You don't just let them go, I think they're going to be okay. Head back to your room, right? Because again, we're leaders, so it's not like we're staying in a bay together. So you can lose positive contact, you may never get it back. So you don't let them go until you figure it out, until you get them where they need to go. And I heard a multitude of resources here. We all know what they are. Right here, Camp Ripley, down in Little Falls at St. Gabe's, down at St. Cloud at the VA. The resources are there. You have the resource in your hand as well. What's a great resource? It's like, where's Waldo? Where's Waldo on this slide? You don't, I don't know if this has a laser, does it? Does it? Oh, awesome. Thank you, Sergeant Weber. Right there. All right, so we'll get a better view of it. But here are the resources right here, right? So I think you did a great job covering them. But I will say that military crisis line, that's a key one, right? Because sometimes it isn't as cut and dry as just, oh, you are in distress, I will take you to St. Gabe's, right? Maybe a soldier doesn't want to go to St. Gabe's right that particular moment. Maybe you're in the gym over in Zone 10, and you're trying to run 5 miles, and you've only made it 3, and you're in distress. You might not be able to easily depart the gym. Help is a phone call away, right? So what I want to leave you with about this slide is do not forget this. All the resources that were described, valid, awesome, necessary. You need to know them. But really, in the clutch, as a leader, and this you should consider sharing with your junior enlisted soldiers. Escort is as simple as, I'm going to call this phone number, and you're going to be right here beside me when I do. Fair enough? So you don't have to be the one who makes the call. Oh, I'm taking you to St. Gabe's. You're suicidal. You're going to kill yourself any minute. I'm going to have to put your arm behind your back. No, this takes the tension down, right? You just say, hey, I'm going to call this number. I need you right here, okay? We're going to sort this out. We're going to figure it out. A crisis line isn't about suicide, right? It's not don't kill me line. It's the crisis line. And I think, again, leaders in this room, pretty fair to say, you're going to know distress. You're going to say, hey, I know what we can do. Call this phone number. We'll figure this out. So that's what I want to leave you with in terms of the number one thing. Keep that top of mind. You know, we all, I think, in this room know when to call 911 when it is an emergency. But that's where the devil comes in with suicide prevention. Is a lot of times when you're having these conversations about the 3 bags full of drama, and you're thinking just like, what can I say next? When you're saying that to yourself, that's the time to be thinking, boy, I can call this crisis line. We can just have a conversation. And you can end that conversation afterwards, and there's no stigma there, right? And that's a soldier cared about me enough to make a phone call, and I had a conversation, and I feel better, right? So the tension comes down, you're taking care of your buddy, doing the right thing. It's in your pocket. There's a phone on every wall, even in the 10 gym. I practiced myself before I had this class because I like to remember stuff. So that's the tool that I want to leave you with. These little cards, these little aids are helpful. National Suicide Prevention Hotline. You just call it the crisis line. Let's just call that crisis line. We'll get some help. All right? So, we have 5 minutes left. Does anyone want to do the role play?
Absolutely.
I mean, we could check the block on that. Or should we do something else? We could do something else. Well, what to do?
You could tell us why we put a number 4 on our line.
I'm so glad you asked that question, Sergeant Anderly. And in fact, when I look at my parking lot, I see why is the number 4 on the truth lie activity card. That may have been stumping more than just you, Sergeant Anderly, but I do have an answer for you, and it's right here in my pocket. The answer is be prepared, right? That's what the scouts do. You never know when you need that extra number. So you put it there just in case. Words to live by. Well, I will say, if there are no further questions, Sergeant?
So is that a volcano, or what is that on your job?
Oh, another fine question. Initially, it was meant to be a volcano, but sometimes I just put something out there, kind of stream of consciousness, and it occurred to me while I was running in the Zone 10 gym the other night, trying to get to 5 miles, that I would educate myself. You learned earlier that I don't watch TV, right? So I don't watch TV. So I'm thinking, there's 800 channels on this thing. What am I going to do while I'm running and trying not to die? And I picked the History Channel, right? That's as a leader, right? I'm projecting, I want to learn about history, maybe they'll have something on military, it'll be good. I'll use it in a class. No. The TV show that I tuned into, and sadly was already running, was called Ancient Aliens. And their special interest in America. And it had everything to do with nuclear tests. And so, this is pretty fascinating. I share it with my wife too. In about the 1960s, like early 60s, 64, there was a strange light that appeared in New Mexico. And all of a sudden, near one of these Air Force bases, all of a sudden, across the Air Force's footprint of intercontinental ballistic missiles, they started to shut themselves down. Not 1 or 2, but 18 to 20. And you can go research this because it is a top secret report that's since been declassified. Now, they never got to the bottom of why these intercontinental ballistic missiles shut themselves down. They were able to reproduce the fault that caused them to shut down. But you have to understand that each of these silos is completely disconnected from the others. And the only way to do it, to replicate the fault, would have been to get into the electrical wiring in the closed system and inject an electrical impulse. Are aliens among us? And do they have a special interest in America? I don't know. But what I can tell you is, nuclear holocaust is bad. So if the aliens are here to try to prevent that, then I support them. Are there any other questions? Keep in mind, questions will abruptly end in a minute. But yeah, any more questions, Sergeant?
I just have a quick comment. For those of you who don't know, I'm a registered nurse on the civilian side, and while I don't work particularly 100% of the time as a psych nurse, you made a comment. I think a lot of times people are afraid to ask a question because they don't know how to respond to somebody when that question is asked. And the key takeaway from that is you don't have to have the right answer to respond. A simple statement of, I don't even know what to say right now, but I'm glad you shared that with me, means the world to somebody in that state. So don't be afraid to ask the question because you don't have the answer to give them to make them feel better. A simple statement of, I don't know what to say, but thank you for sharing that with me, will open many doors and alleviate a lot of stress. So I want you all to take that away. Don't be afraid to ask a question.
Excellent, excellent points there, guys. As had been highlighted earlier by another fine participant in the class, how do we make that transition from when we ask to demonstrate that we care? Perfect, thank you. All right, well that concludes this block of instruction. Go forth, do great things.